What's up, y'all? Hotep Jesus. We are back with another wonderful, sharp conversation with Hotep Jesus. For a wonderful guest today. Y'all know how I feel about malls. This is one of my most favorite malls in the world. She's been holding it down on the tweeters. She's been holding me down. Been very, very supportive through thick and thin. Appreciate her coming on. She hit me up in the DM and said, "Hey, we need to talk again." And normally I don't have repeat guests, but because I have this soft spot for malls and I know what she has to say is very important, and I think these conversations between me and her are very important. I said, "Yeah, let me know when. We'll go ahead and get this thing scheduled." So this was about a week, maybe longer ago, and I said, I got this Tuesday night slot open. Let's go ahead and give this a go. So the title of this one is Suburban Mom Challenges Radical Feminism. Let me go ahead and just introduce my guest, Miss or Mrs. Catherine Kingsbury, the Queen of Kingsbury. How are you?
I'm awesome. How are you?
Life is marvelous, darling. Marvelous.
It is.
Definitely. So you came in my DMs and you said, Hotep, let me actually find the exact DM so I don't misquote you or anything like that. And let me see.
Yeah, I got a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, you said okay, here it is. It says hi, Governor Pritzker is politicizing COVID-19 to try to hold our kids hostage for federal money. It's not only the blue state where this is occurring. Children used as pawns in a political game running up the election. This affects their ability to compete for academic and athletic scholarships, especially in minority communities in Cook County College like Chicago. Meanwhile, the governor's daughter is competing in her sport across state lines, violating his own draconian COVID restrictions. There are several governors who are doing this stuff. Cuomo is one of them. Yes, he is. I've done my research, and there are millions of kids in the blue states affected. And parents are breaking the point, trying to be heard. We need a platform. So before we get into feminism, I want to address that and see what your concerns are with that. Can you talk to that point?
Yeah, very timely because, so funny story. After that, I guess it was maybe it was before this. I was in a group on Facebook and they invited me to come out to a rally to do just like a supportive role to help them kind of keep the speakers in order. And we were doing a rally to try to open, get awareness to open the schools, because our schools, we haven't started school yet at all. This school year, we've been completely remote. And so I showed up at the rally and I ended up talking to one of the rally organizers named Jacqueline Cook. She's great. She asked me if I would speak at the rally. So she put me third in line, and I didn't have my hair done, didn't look cute or anything, but I had a lot of passion behind the purpose. And so I stood up at the podium and there was lots of news people there and all of that stuff. And I gave a little speech, unprepared, no notes, but I spoke from my heart. And so at the end of the day, I got home from this rally and there was like 15 speakers and everyone was amazing.
Okay.
For some weird reason, the news stations decided to use my video. And before you knew it, it was me all over all of the local stations. And then on Fox and Friends the next morning, someone called me and said, "You were on Fox and Friends." Just a snippet, a video of me with my hand in the air going,
Okay.
But anyway, it was kind of funny because what are the odds,
Yeah.
me, getting. So the point of all of this is that, I'm from Texas.
Yep.
So this whole, Democrat governor that we have is just, he blows my mind all the time with the things that he does and says. And mainly he comes out and he does press conferences and says things like, well, because of the science, we've decided we're going to do X, Y, and Z. But he doesn't explain the science or tell what the science is or who the source of the data is or any of that. He's just making these unilateral decisions, which I find to always to line up politically. Now, if you think about it, so kids have been online. They were just about to start the younger kids this week. Actually, today would have been the day. School board sent out like a robocall last night and said, never mind, We have some COVID cases that are concerning. So we're not going to go back to school. So everybody was all, all freaking out and sending each other messages. And then wouldn't you know, the very next day, the governor comes out and says, these certain counties, which happen to be kind of leaning red in a very blue state, are not doing well with COVID. So we're getting ready to go back to some COVID lockdowns, phase 3 for the next, for so long. And it's crazy. Like, our kids haven't done sports. They haven't had a school. They're staring at a screen all day, every day. And all of the states around us. Now, listen, I'm not kidding. I'm not exaggerating. Every state around us, we call it the island of Illinois. Everybody's been in school. Everybody's been, good at getting back into life. And we have the lowest positivity rate, the best COVID numbers, but the most strict guidelines. We're number 47th in how advanced we've come since the beginning of COVID. 47th.
Wow.
So if you can imagine my frustration, not only on behalf of me and my family, but we're doing okay.
Right.
I'm very fortunate, but there's a lot of single parents, low income families, people that are really struggling through this, and they just keep moving the goalposts, and everybody is upside down trying to figure out what to do with their kids. And it's a terrible situation. And I feel like 2 weeks before the election, the irony of, and I actually told my husband this a few weeks ago. I said, watch, 2 weeks before the election, right when everybody's getting amped up to vote, he's going to lock it down again. Sure enough.
Called you. Catherine Ben told you.
I've been told you this was going to happen. And sure enough, it did. So, yeah, there's a lot of very angry, very frustrated, very confused. And, we're up against a lot. There's a group of people, I call them the sanctimommies, that every time you want to say, I'm frustrated, I'm upset, I don't like what's going on, they come in and, oh, you want everyone to die? You just don't care about grandma, all that manipulative talk. And it's really frustrating because these people are afraid. They don't want to put their kids back in school. And they've literally sent emails to the district saying, well, it's not fair if other people's kids go back to school in person, because then they'll have a better experience at school and it will still be in a lockdown, and that won't be fair. That's not equitable. I mean, can you imagine?
Right.
Don't, stay at home if you don't want to go out. But anyway, I'm not insensitive. I don't think COVID is a hoax. I definitely understand there's issues, but I also believe in common sense and looking the data up yourself instead of getting spoon-fed like baby food, all of these, sketchy facts from different news stations. So it's getting me really stressed out and annoyed. But this too shall pass, and we'll get through it. That was the segue to the feminism, because I had a lot of women attacking me and using a lot of kind of feminist lingo and tricks and things to try to make me feel bad about, my position and that kind of thing. So I thought, well, maybe we could talk about that. So
yeah,
that's why we're here, right?
It's been very.
What do you think?
Yeah, it's been very frustrating. I know Uncle Hotep has been quite frustrated with the lockdown and and his daughter and getting back to school. And I agree with you. A lot of this stuff is very much anti-science. And it's, you would think it would be you versus the state, you versus the establishment, you versus the politicians, but it's you versus the sanctimommies, right? And it's like
it's crazy. Fine. And the sanctidaddies are popping in it too with their, opinions,
Yeah. And it's fine that people have their opinions, but tell me if I'm wrong here. It seems like they leave no room for you to have yours.
Correct. That's the frustration. We can both have what we believe is right for our families and for our kids. The issue arises when you judge someone else for a decision that they make for their own family. And not only do you judge them, but you do it vocally, and then you scold them and shame them and use manipulative language to try to shut them up. And, we're so disappointed in the people in our community who are bashing teachers, which no one in our group was ever doing. We love our teachers. We love the administrators in the school, you know, our principals. Like, all these people are really good people. The school board, on the other hand, don't get me started with that, with those folks. But, you know, we've got, you know, Democrat candidates pushing for office right now, getting money from the teachers union, getting money from the state, from a kind of the guy's under FBI investigation. His name's Madigan. He's sending money to one of our school board members. She's running for office. She did not recuse herself from any of these decisions. Like, I find it to be it's like tangled spaghetti. It's a big mess. And I don't know how we got here, but here we are.
Man. Okay, let's segue into the feminism. How does the feminism relate to all of this? Obviously with the sanctimonies and their jargon, but elaborate on that.
Right. Okay. It's kind of a strange way I got to it, but so there was people having this big conversation, you know, and I find these women are very, you know, they're very aggressive in their speech, and they're very condescending and arrogant. Some of them.
Yes.
But if you go after them, if you're a guy, if one of them dads goes after the women, then they clutch the pearls, and it's, oh, you can't talk to a woman like that. How dare you speak to me in this manner? It's, you know, oh, you know, bring on the fainting couch, you know, or whatever. And it just really started to tick me off. It's like, how can you go from you're being the aggressor, you are being, you know, rude and obnoxious, and then all of a sudden someone challenges you on facts and kind of puts you into a corner, and then you're going to throw out the woman card. Oh, you can't talk to me like that. I'm a woman. And it just started me down this path where I thought, you know, this happens to me a lot. I confront people on Twitter or whatever when I find them being hypocritical about this issue.
Okay.
And in this case, I found it to be very hypocritical to get into a verbal, you know, tennis match on Facebook about your opinion, and then if a man comes in and calls you out, it's mansplaining, or it's, you know, that was what set me off. It's, oh, now you're here to mansplain to me. So you can't explain anything to a woman if you're a guy, or you're mansplaining. It's such a cop out of epic proportions. And so it took me down the rabbit hole, and then I ended up talking to someone else on Twitter the following day, and it was the same thing. They were off going on about Vice President Pence and how he was mansplaining to Kamala Harris, and poor Kamala, you know, she deserves better than him being such a misogynist. And I thought, why is she falling back on that? She's a strong woman. She's the Attorney General of California. Why didn't she speak up and say, hold on, I don't need anybody defending me.
Right.
Nobody's mansplaining to me. But no, she doubled down on it and acted like a victim. And I'm like, how will we come to this fork in the road where feminism and misogyny and, you know, toxic masculinity are all these subjects, but as soon as a woman gets hot under the collar and gets, you know, her butt handed to her in an argument by a guy, they play the woman card. Oh, you can't talk to me that way. Oh, you're mansplaining, you're man-interrupting me, or whatever ridiculous term that they pop out. And it's just, it's to me, it's an insult as a woman to say, if I was going to go up, like you and I, we talk, and there have been times when we've talked where you've said, Catherine, no, I don't believe that. I think that's BS. I think what I think is X, Y, and Z. And I don't get upset. I'm not a wilting flower.
Yes.
I just take it. I take it like a man.
Be careful now.
All right, wait a minute. Yeah, I'm not patriarchy. I'm in the dangerous water there. But anyway, it just got me thinking about, I'm raising a daughter. I see other people raising their daughters, and I find this dichotomy between equality and equity as a woman, yet you can't talk to her like that or push her around like that. She's a woman. Even in politics, you know, these women are in positions of power. And yet as soon as anybody corners them in such a way that they feel, you know, like they've been bested in some way, that's when it usually pops out.
Yes.
Is, oh, you're being misogynistic to me. It's sexism because I don't like what you're saying. You're hurting my feelings. So it's sexism. And I just call BS on that. I think it's ridiculous.
Yeah,
Do you see that happening?
I'm so elated that we're having this conversation. I feel optimistic about the outlook of our country, that you're one of the people ready to come in front of a camera, come on a platform and express these problems, because I can't do it, right? Because it would be mansplaining and man interrupting and all of that, right? But when another woman
Right.
speaks up and speaks against the mob, this is very, very important. And I think people need to
Right.
support you and people like you. But I see it, like I'm on this app Clubhouse, and I try to stick to the capitalism rooms and the economics rooms, but they have other rooms that are mostly liberal dominated. And these people are very rude and they don't have any room for dissenting opinions. And as soon as a dissenting opinion comes out, they play the victim card.
Right. Yes. They're intolerant of debate of any kind.
Yes.
And they have it's an invisible fence that you're not allowed to cross, or you get slapped down. It's like an electrical invisible fence. As soon as you touch it, they come at you. And I'm about taking it down, because as a woman, I'm offended by people using feminism or sexism to shut down male opinions, because I have two sons. I want them to be heard. But I don't know. I'm going to read you this. I saw something in a book that I...
Can I just interrupt before you read that? Here's the danger.
Interrupting.
There it goes.
No, yeah, go for it. Go for it.
I think this is dangerous waters, because there are legitimate gripes that women have.
Oh, yeah.
Just recently today, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this because of the algorithm, but the Biden's son, his laptop was confiscated, or Cuomo or whoever handed it over to Delaware State Police because it contained underage girls' pictures or something like that, some sort of content that is, of underage girls, right? So that is a huge concern. Eliza Blue, who'll be on my platform in a couple of weeks, was trafficked, was a victim of human trafficking. And she advocates for human trafficking, right? And she deals with a lot of hate. People have wished death on her and so on and so forth. And it's like, these are the real problems that we need to face when it comes to women.
Yes.
And they've minimized women's problems to, how a man speaks to me. And I'm like, that's the least of your concern, right?
Right. Exactly. You hit the nail on the head. We're mired down in the minutia, and as we're busy, battling about man spreading on the subway or other nonsense, concepts and offenses, the huge issues are just passing us by.
Yes.
And it makes me nuts, because like you said, I'll give you a great example of this. So I was several months ago, I came across something on Twitter where there was this kind of cohort of men that were Muslim, or I don't remember, I guess they were in a tribunal, and they were, hitting this woman and yelling at her, and she had like taken her head scarf off and anything. Anyway, I retweeted this and I said, attention, radical feminists, this is what we should be addressing. When there's domestic violence issues where men are literally, and because of my history and my dysfunctional childhood, I'm a victim of, domestic violence and sexual assault.
I'm sorry.
I have these things in my, in my past. So, I know that all men don't do those things, but some men do.
Yes.
And, but then again, there's some women who engage in domestic abuse too, but sometimes they skate because they're women.
Right.
But that's another, thing.
Right.
But I hear what you're saying. And so anyway, in the midst of all of this, I was going straight to the people who are constantly complaining about, sexism. And I said, this is sexism. This is abuse. This is, something that feminists should be up in arms about, talking about all day. Sex trafficking, these women who are being, oppressed, religiously oppressed, physically oppressed. And I cannot even tell you the amount of hate I got from women to tell me to stay in my lane. This is a matter between these men and these women because it's their religion. Like finding ways to make excuses for the real stuff that matters. And then, and then putting their little pink, hat on and marching around, with signs.
Yeah.
And completely, ignoring the elephant in the room, which is these women who are literally being beaten down and oppressed, who are fighting for their rights in these countries, and even in our own country, in some communities where there's a heavy population of people who are treating women like chattel, literally. So they were coming at me, and I was going back and I was saying, don't tell me that you don't have rights as a woman in this country, and then overlook what's going on right in front of your face that I just posted, and passing it off as though it were nothing, because that is the height of hypocrisy, and I just won't have it. Like, I won't just let that go. So I hear what you're saying, and I agree with you. There are so many instances of actual
abuse,
acts of violence and abuse and misogyny that are real.
Yeah.
They're not microaggressions, or you irritated me, or you looked at me the wrong way, or when you brushed past me in the hall, you accidentally touched your butt to my butt. Who cares?
Yeah.
I mean, come on. Let's get to the nitty gritty.
I was at a startup once, and I want you to read that story after this comment, but I was at a startup.
No worries.
And my female coworker, who was a feminist, it was a god-awful time working there. She was pouring a beer. We worked at a WeWork. She's pouring a beer, and she came back complaining, said, "Oh my God, this guy was trying to tell me how to pour my beer." And she was so offended. I'm just like, in my head, I'm like, you're mad because he was trying to help you with your beer? Right? Like,
yeah, right.
They are a very toxic group.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Same girl, had she gone into the kitchen and couldn't get the pickle jar open, who was she going to call?
A man.
Of course. Because the pickle jar is the perfect, example of women who, I am a woman, I can do all things, I can do it better than men, blah, blah, blah. And then it's like, honey, I can't get the step stool high enough. Honey, it's women wanting to be men is not feminism.
Women wanting to
and
be
men are created the way.
It is not feminism. That's a tweet right there, y'all. Tweet that out. Catherine Queen, I almost called you Queensbury.
Queen of Kingsbury.
Queen of Kingsbury. Yeah. Women trying to act like men is not feminism. Oh, that's wonderful.
Thank you. That it's the truth. That's what I feel. That's feminists trying to assimilate into the patriarchy. Are they really feminists, or are they just women who have been pulled into the system, and all of a sudden now they're enjoying all of the same, I guess, privileges and things that are affiliated with that? Are they breaking the patriarchy, or are they just like enjoying the fruits of the labor of getting where they've gone? Does that make sense? I didn't say that well. I think you know what I mean.
Yes.
It's like, if you want to be a man and live in a man's world, then how are you taking down the patriarchy? That's just you hanging out in the patriarchy and kind of liking it there.
Mm-hmm.
So,
they want to control the patriarchy.
It's all about power. It's about power.
Yeah. So let's hear that piece you wanted to read.
Oh yeah. Yeah. This was something that I saw in a article that I thought was really interesting. It says feminists are often intolerant of debate. They are scolds and demean women with traditional values as weak and ignorant and even harmful to the cause. It's often an intolerant ideology that represses freedom. Radical feminism permeates academia and teaches women to be victims instead of being empowered. What's the point of this exercise?
Who wrote that?
I have to go back and I'll attribute it. It was a book review that I read that I thought was really interesting. And I wrote it down because it's sort of, here's the thing. I'm not busting on feminists who are after equality and equal pay for equal work.
Yeah.
And but I'm calling to the carpet the people who are wanting equal outcomes without equal, contribution. So you don't get to have what everybody else has if you haven't done the work and put in the time. And there's just so many things that feminists are complaining about on. So I mean, I can't even tell you how many times I've seen on Twitter women who are so weak-minded that they literally believe that they are oppressed in America and they don't have rights. They don't have equal rights. And if you ask them pointedly, would you just be specific and explain to me one right that you don't have that your male counterparts do? It's like there's a glitch in the matrix. Like they can't come up with anything. There isn't anything to come up with. And yet, there's just this scorn and condescension that happens when you tell people, I stay home with my kids. I'm a wife to my husband. It's like, oh, it's kind of like the Amy Coney Barrett. I've seen a lot of that going on with this Supreme Court nominee. I don't know if you've seen did you watch any of the hearings?
Yeah, I caught some clips, and I did about an hour one day just to kind of get her vibe. But yeah, I've been sort of following.
Yeah. So what's wrong with her, according to the feminists, is she just can't, she's just blown up the whole thing because she's supposedly submissive to her husband and she can't do anything. And they trotted out their handmaid tale costumes again, like they did with Kavanaugh, and, walked around with their handmaid, tale costumes. And it's like, how is that appropriate when you are, you've got this woman who has, she's top of her class at Notre Dame Law School. She's a powerhouse. She's a mom. She's adopted 2 children from Haiti. She's doing it all, kind of thing. And she's got a supportive husband that really, he's working too. He's an attorney. Like they really are making it work. And here she is nominated to a Supreme Court justice, and they're finding a way to demean her because she doesn't fit the narrative.
And there's not a single feminist.
Is that?
And there's not a single feminist to come to her side.
Not one.
Because
one. They think that she's after their abortions.
Right.
And nobody even really knows that. It's an assumption they're making that she would come in and repeal Roe versus Wade, and then what would we do with our free abortion on demand? And I feel it's bizarre, the feminist relationship to their womanhood, because women have the ability to bear children, right?
Yes.
And I think in some ways, feminism teaches that's going to hold you back. If you get pregnant and you are in a relationship and you raise your child, you won't be able to go take on the world and have that corporate job or be that senator or be that. And it's as though the other things don't matter anymore, like raising your child. And, it's like the best job in the world, being with your children and being with them every day, informing their life and informing them of your values and all of that stuff, as though that's a negative now. If you're doing that, then you've, sold out and you're screwing up the movement and you're, I don't know, it's weird.
Yeah.
Does your wife, what does your wife think about this kind of stuff? Are you allowed to speak on her behalf?
My wife's a shopper. The main thing she's thinking about is shopping. But when we do have these, discussions, she's usually like in alignment with you, right? Like when she hears some of this stuff, like maybe, from one of my shows, that she's like, yo, what the hell is that lady talking about? Like, I don't agree with none of that, She thinks these people, she doesn't even understand it because she doesn't live in this world. She doesn't see it. She's not on Twitter like that.
Right.
So but when she does come across it, she's very much in alignment with you and I. And she's just like,
right.
Like, what did that lady just say? Like, oh, tell her to shut up. That's what my lady.
Right. Well, I have an interesting anecdote to tell you. So we moved here from Texas. Now, we're in a different area now in Texas, in the South. women are feminine. I love my femininity. I love my, I love my accessories. I love my hair. I like to, I love being feminine. And I be honest with you, like, let's be real, okay? Being feminine is powerful in and of itself.
Right.
Trying to erase that from yourself to be more like a man is not going to give you power. It's just going to frustrate you and make you angry. That's what it looks like anyway to me. Not everyone. I'm not painting with a broad brush. I'm just saying. I stayed home with my kids. Thank the Lord, I've been able to be with my kids since they were little. And yes, it is boring sometimes. And yes, it is, not glamorous sometimes. Right. But it's the best thing I've ever done. It's the best work I probably will ever do in my life.
So important.
Is being a mother to my children and a wife to my husband, who, by the way, I don't want to compete with. Right. He's him and I'm me, and we don't need to compete. I don't need to go do, or we're not going to go do plank competitions and, try to deadlift each other. Right. That's not, we play in our own, sandbox. But, so we moved up here, and my daughter was she was in 7th grade, and she got this project assigned to her to write about a career that she felt was fulfilling and what she wanted to do when she got older. So she wrote this big thing about me, and she made a poster with all these cool little cutouts from magazines. And it was all about motherhood and how my mom is powerful and she's smart and she knows how to fix things, because I am like very mechanically inclined. I can tinker around and fix stuff, Okay. And so my daughter held me up as her hero in my job that I do. And she took it to school with pride and came home at the end of the day in tears because her project was rejected by her female teacher, who told her being a mother is not a job, and it's not a career. And I'm not accepting that, because your mom is your mom, but all moms are moms. And she said, no, my mom stays home all day and does her job like your job. And the lady got really ticked at her and just said, no, 0. So wow. I guess you could imagine that me and my Texan self marched right into the school the next day, and we sorted that out. And my daughter got a grade on her project. Let's
go, Mom.
But I will say that that's the kind of thing that girls are being taught, that you don't have value if you're a wife and a mother, a homemaker. I volunteer so much of my time. I've built floats for the parade. I've raised money for all of these organizations. I've worked my rear end off being a mom. So I don't want some feminist, woman from my child's school telling me that my job is irrelevant, or to demean me and tell my daughter, in front of my daughter, that what I do doesn't have enough value and that it's a 0. And so, yeah, we didn't get a 0.
Your job.
We didn't get 100, but we didn't get 100. We didn't get a 0.
Your job is more important than any job in this world. Period.
I agree with that.
Period. I've seen, because I'm a stay-at-home dad. I'm home here, and my lady works from home too, so I can't really say like that. But I see a big difference in the fact that we spend so much time with our kids as opposed to how some of the other kids behave. And the more time you spend with your kids, the better they come out. And the teacher, she wants to raise your children. That's the problem. She wants to control how your daughter lives your life. But the teacher's job is I'm disgusted by that story. I'm so upset about that. That's terrible that she would even have the audacity to do that.
No, but we turned it into a learning experience, in which I told her that there will be people in your life. See, this is the ultimate feminism to me. There will be people in your life that tell you things that in your heart are not true.
Right.
And they don't line up with your values. They don't line up with your family traditions. And you are to reject those things outright. That doesn't mean you don't listen and that you don't give the person respect to tell you what their opinion is. But when your internal, when your conscience fires off a warning shot, pay attention. And your values are your values. Don't let anyone talk you out of them. And it's been a little bit of a weird ride coming from a southern state where we prayed at the school, and there was a lot of stay-home moms, and we all just kind of respected each other. And did, cranked it out and did the grind every day and, pick up lines and soccer, football, cheer, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
There's when I came up here to Chicago, there is definitely sometimes, not with everyone. A lot of people there's a lot of stay-home moms in Chicago. Don't get me wrong, but there's a lot of people who are just kind of like, oh, so you don't work? Oh, but did you go to college? Did you want to do anything other than being a mom? And it's like, I did do things other than being a mom, and then I became a mom, and then it became all about my kids because
Wow.
I only have one shot at this, and I had a consulting company before I was a mom, and I have a custom apparel business that I started once my kids got older. So I'm not just a mom, but the most important thing that I am is a mother to my children and a wife to my husband, and no, screeching harpy, on Twitter is going to, back me down from that, truth.
Right.
So.
Right.
Did I say barking harpy? That's just right out without me even. I have no gate. There's no filter.
You don't need no filter
that.
on this platform.
There's a screeching harpy out there who was offended by that. I'm super sorry.
They'll be all right. Do you find that feminism is more about attacking men than it is about protecting women?
Wow, that's an awesome question. I think it's a two-edged sword. I think it's a great weapon to wield in this society when you can't quite make it one way. Then you can attack everybody. I guess what I would say is mostly it's more about building yourself up by tearing others down. So you have to, everything is a man's fault. And then everything else is the woman who doesn't line up and fall in line with and walk in lockstep with the ideology of feminism, not feminism. I don't have a big problem with feminism. It's the postmodern radical left feminism where we are tearing each other down and not allowing discourse and demeaning one another and that kind of thing that I have a big problem with. So I think it's both. And I think that it's used, incidentally and situationally to shut people up and to make them, fit your narrative. And I think for way too long, we've allowed it. We've had the Gloria Steinems and the Margaret Meads and all of these women tell us how we are supposed to feel about being women and tell us how victimized we are. And then we're supposed to, be mad about it. And I'm not going to walk through my life being angry at being a woman. I'm grateful for my role as being a woman. I don't feel like I'm less than anyone. I never felt that way until someone told me I should. Of course, I said, no, I don't. I'm not. That doesn't line up with my values. And it irritates people who want me to agree with it. I do not want people telling my boys that there's something wrong with them because they're male, and that they are bad people because they're men, and that those things that are in their DNA that are written in there by their creator to be and to do, the behaviors that they engage in and the way that they talk and the things that they say that are in them. I'm not going to have some woman beating my kids down and trying to beat their masculinity out of them and make them feel like there's something wrong with them. That's not acceptable. And I feel like more moms, more women need to stand up to this ideology. I don't care what other people do with their lives. If that's what they want to go do what they want to go do, that's cool with me.
Right.
But what I don't want is them trying to impose their ideology on me and mine. So
yes, let's talk about the boys, right? Because this is creating a dangerous world for young boys and young men and setting them up for a lot of things like false accusations and so on and so forth. And for example, like I said, I was, in some of these liberal chat rooms, and it seemed like the women wanted men to just worship them, right? Where I'll give you an example. A guy said he started up a company, him and his homies, and he said he went out and sought out some black women to join his team. The woman responded and she said, it's great that you did that, but y'all need to include us from the beginning. And I'm just like if him and his homies got together and came up with an idea and launched the idea, like, it's so hard to get business going. You're not even thinking about, like, oh, let's include, you're not thinking about activism, right? But after you kind of get things going, you're like, hey, wait, we have a moment to like stop and breathe here. Let's think about activism. And, and then he was cucked, like he was completely cucked. He's like, oh yeah, I'm sorry, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, yo, what you apologizing for? So they're creating a space where men won't be allowed to be men.
Correct. Even my own son, who's 16, was happened last year. I said something to him about getting involved in a project, and he said, well, there's a lot of girls there, and I feel like that my role is to just be quiet and listen. And I said, who told you that? And he's like, well, I just know it's the best thing to do is just to be quiet and listen, because men's opinions are not wanted in that kind of an environment. And I was just like gutted. And I said, no, that's not yes, your opinion absolutely is wanted and needed. And if anyone tries to tell you different, well, then, they're wrong. And I feel like there's this moral high ground that women have that are in this ideology, that they are the be all end all moral authority of who says what, when, and how. They make up rules as they go along, this intersectionality and all of these things that women's studies are, teaching young minds. And it's like, I feel like we need to eliminate this moral halo, that they've got going on. Take it off their heads and don't give them so much power to impose their moral authority on everyone based on an ideology that not everybody agrees with. And honestly, I see a lot of American women with this kind of attitude. If you go around the world and you look and see how other women are living their lives, I find it to be the height of arrogance to walk around like a victim in the United States of America, complaining about their lot in life as women. When you look around you and you see what other women are dealing with in the world, it's the height of absurdity, in my opinion. And they have no moral high ground to look down on us, deplorable, women with our husbands and our children and our, SUVs and, and all of that, and act as though we're the problem and that we're doing something wrong. And then trying to silence my son or silence our young men. It doesn't matter if they're black men or white men or Indian men. Like, it doesn't matter. It's men have a role in this society that's hugely important. Men are great leaders. Men are very, task oriented. Men have their way about them that's super useful, and women have their way about them that are super useful. We are always better together, and we're always better when we allow each other to be ourselves. But now we have all of this new stuff coming in where even I get tickled at women being so focused on being women that they don't even realize that men are coming in and starting to be women too. Now they're inviting it in. Men are coming into women's sports. And I get an amen.
Amen.
Men are coming in. Men are coming into women's sports and beating them all at their own game. And the women, feminists, are like clapping like seals. Oh, this is so great! And I'm like, what are you doing? How is this empowering women to allow men who have transitioned into women's sports and then clap about it as though it's some big accomplishment for women, when all it does is set women back and take them out of the race? It's up is down, down is up. I can't with it. I just can't. I'm not going to pretend like that's okay. It's not okay.
Yeah.
Young women need ambassadors that are women that understand this kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's
my opinion.
I was on Twitter the other day, and they in the Black liberal community, they're talking about Black men need to do a better job protecting Black women, and Black women are victims of domestic violence at the hands of Black men. And then there was this viral video, and this man had broken into, I believe, his ex's house, and she was videotaping him, and he stole her keys and walked out. And make a long story short, I started, looking through the thread to look at the comments and get some context for the video. And the man had 2 scars below his breast area. And I said, whoa, this was a transition. This is someone who transitioned from a female to a male. But you know what was missing? Accountability. There was no uproar saying, hey, this was wrong, because that person was trans. They were protected. And I'm like, this. So the rules change if you're not a natural biological male. So I love the point that you brought up, trans, because it's a very slippery slope that we're sliding in.
It is a slippery slope, but I think it's something that needs to be addressed head on without, because I have nothing but sympathy for someone who is in that situation. It's got to be devastating mindset or way of living to feel that way in your own body. And I have nothing but sympathy for that. But I also, I get a little bit sort of gobsmacked by all of the believe the science, listen to the experts, believe the science, listen to the experts from one side of the aisle, except when it comes to this other stuff we're trying to push through that isn't really scientific. It's like, I mean, are we going to believe the science and the experts? Or are we going to make up our own rules as we go along, as it fits the narrative, it's like a snowball rolling downhill. I want people to be well. I want them to be treated well. I want them to be treated with respect. But on the other hand, if my child is at a track meet, my daughter is at a track meet and she's worked her butt off all of these years, and she goes, and then she goes into this meet, and then this guy comes that's 6'1", and he's, pumped up and runs circles around all of the women. What are we teaching women? What are we saying to them? You aren't even men are even better at being women than women. I mean, let's just be honest. It's one thing to be sympathetic to someone's plight, which I am. Right. And I believe that they should be able to run. And I believe they should be able to race, that they should be able to race with other transgendered people so that it's a fair fight and a fair race. That's my belief. My opinion, worth what you paid for it. Yeah. But I feel like that issue is, listen to the science. Let's be, scientific about this. And I'm like, well, if we're scientific about it, then obviously someone has a different bone structure and a different center of gravity and different muscle mass and different, abilities that are obvious. This is why when we go to the Olympics, we have women's weightlifting and men's weightlifting.
Right.
Right?
Right. Yeah.
Exactly. How is a woman ever going to make it in men's weightlifting?
I think you brought up a point that I'm going to steal, right? It's like, we have to follow the science with wearing these masks. But when it comes to that issue, I don't want to say, but when it comes to that issue, all of a sudden, science is bullshit. It's like, no, you're like, either science is real or it's not. Y'all can't just pick and choose. You're
cherry picking the science to fit your narrative, which is dishonest and hypocritical. And I think we all need to start being brave about calling out things that are hypocritical and don't make sense, and just say that's hypocritical and doesn't make sense. That what you're afraid of is you're afraid of getting pounded by the outrage mob, and they come at you. They'll come at you fast and hard and call you names and try to deplatform you and get you reported. And I've been through all of that, but I just can't be scared of that anymore. You can't bow down to those people. Because the more, it's like a bully, the more you bow down, the more power they have and the more they, harass you. That's been my experience.
I want to talk about male feminists, right? And I have a story to tag along with this. So
that's good.
To me, male feminists are the most dangerous type of feminists. And they're not dangerous to us. They're actually dangerous to other women. And I'm not going to say all male feminists, because that would be wrong of me. But there's a percentage of, or a portion of male feminists who are rapists. I'll just come out and say it, who will sexually abuse women. And they are wolf in sheep's clothing. And they take on this facade of a feminist because that's the only way they know how to be around women, how to get attention from women, and play that simp role. So the story goes like this. The feminists had a party. or somebody close to the feminists had it. Some male had a party, and he was, an ally of the feminists, male feminists. And at this party, a woman was raped by this gentleman, and it leaked to Twitter with a whole lot of proof and evidence. And don't you know that the feminists, well, first of all, they were forced to confront this, right? They were forced to say, okay, yes, I knew about this, because they had been quiet for some time. And it was just disgusting that they were willing to hide this incident of a woman being raped at this party because it was one of their own, because it was one of the people who was their ally. And they spent all this time calling everybody else rapists and rape culture. But as soon as one of their own was found as rapists, they were quick to hide. So, male feminists to me are the most dangerous men to women.
Right. Well, it's funny you brought up that, and I agree with that 100%, because really it's not your battle, not your place. That's my opinion. Fight for your own stuff, but stop taking on other people's. And women want to fight for their own rights. Why do they want men in there as allies fighting for their rights when what they're trying to do is separate themselves from men in the fight? I find that strange. You brought up the party scenario, which brought up another anecdotal thing that I was talking to a friend about the other day with regard to women and the, we're women, we're doing our own thing, don't, mess with us. But the college culture, so I have a son in college now, since I talked to you last. He's in Colorado, living his best life. And we've had to have some talks about, getting into these situations and things like that, where the rules are different. So back in the day, many, many years ago, if you went to a party and you've been drinking, and a guy went to a party and they'd been drinking, and something happened and you ended up in the morning doing, God forbid, the walk of shame, that was on you. Right. You shouldn't have been drinking that much. You should have, you have to be accountable for your own actions, be responsible for your own behavior. But now, as I'm hearing it, if not my son, he doesn't drink, but like if a boy is drinking and a girl is drinking and they have the same level of impairment, they have two different levels of responsibility right now in the world that we live in. So if a man and a woman have a thing going, and the woman regrets it the next day and says, well, I didn't give my consent, it's automatically the guy's fault. But to me, it doesn't make any logical sense that if you and the guy are at the same level of being impaired, and he can't really consent either if he's in the same boat you're in, and you can't really consent because you're too drunk, but you still did something you shouldn't have, and you're both responsible for being, doing the wrong thing and making, or whatever the right thing. It's not me to judge, but this whole thing of saying the next day as a woman, well, I didn't give my consent because I was too drunk, so that's rape, is absurdity. And it's very scary to raise young men in this environment where women are taught. And now, to me, this is antithetical to women's empowerment to tell a woman you're a victim if you make a bad decision and you do something dumb or irresponsible. You're always going to be the victim in this scenario, no matter what, because you're a girl. How is that feminism, and how is that empowering women to give them an out or a pass if that kind of situation comes up? Do you see what I mean? I find that very bizarre.
Yeah.
What do you think of that? Am I off base?
No. It's sticky though. It's very sticky.
I know.
Right?
I know. Yeah.
I think
it depends on the circumstances. But.
Yeah, there's a lot of nuance and particulars of each incident, right? But there are guys who purposely get a girl drunk for the purpose of knowing that she's going to lower her defenses and not make the right decisions, right? But then there are women who go out and get drunk too because they want to fornicate, right? And it's like, how do we judge these situations, right? Yeah, it's very dicey.
Yeah.
It's like, how do we judge these?
Yeah. But it boils down to personal accountability and responsibility, which I find very lacking in the society that we live in now. And as parents, we have to do better. We have to teach our kids personal accountability and responsibility. It's you do what's right for you and keep your wits about you, and that's not going to happen. And yes, I know that I'm not talking about date rape, drugs. I'm not talking about that kind of thing.
Right.
That's a different situation altogether.
Yeah.
But I am talking about being responsible for your own behavior, and don't expect someone else to bail you out of a situation that you've gotten yourself into if you're a co-conspirator in the, anyway, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just I just find it strange that women are supposed to be empowered, and yet you're supposed to be treated with kid gloves. Like I feel like there's
it's like you get all of the power with none of the responsibility and accountability.
That's what I was trying to say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That doesn't make sense
decades
at all.
and decades and decades after feminism started, are we better off than we were?
After feminism, are we better off than we were? I wouldn't.
I mean, I think that are the children thriving? I mean,
yeah. There's
we're in.
Yeah, there's different things that we have to measure about the society, right? And I think that there has been some sort of toxic locker room culture amongst men, right? And there has been.
Oh, definitely.
And
no question.
Some of that has been checked, right? And we have to hold other men accountable and our friends accountable about how they talk to women and how we view women, right? And me raising boys, I'm very particular about how they watch me interact with their mother and other women, and have that level of respect. So in some ways it's gotten better. In some ways things have gotten a lot worse. But when
you said space, do you think it's a mistake to keep letting women into men's space but not allowing men into women's space? So men have kind of gotten chased out of their own space.
Like which spaces
they don't really
are you talking about?
Well, like you said locker room, and it made me think about this is probably a very unpopular opinion. It's not really an opinion, it's just an observation, which is like football. Perfect example. When I used to watch football, it was like that was where men were men and men were doing man things, and the guys were talking about football on the sidelines, and then suddenly it was like, well, we have to watch what we say because we have women reporters in the locker room. And then it was women on the sidelines talking to the players and interviewing them. And it's like, I feel like women are more and more wanting to be in men's space, to feel equal, to be in the men's space. But where do the men go when you've chased them out of that space? And then, and where's their space? It's like the old fashioned, like going into the study for cigars and brandy, but the women are, banging the door open and saying, we want cigars and brandy too. So it's like, where do the men go for their space?
Yeah.
Are we just going to keep going in like the blob and like permeating every male space so that they don't have a space of their own? Is that what we want to do?
That's an interesting question. That's an excellent idea to springboard off of. That's something I hadn't thought about, and you're absolutely right. They are taking away male spaces, and like the locker room was our space too, where we could just say sometimes some inappropriate things. Inappropriate things are said in movies and TV and comedy, and it's just like we have to be PC in the locker room, and it's like that was our opportunity to kind of like let loose and so that
be men
and be men,
without the eyes watching, and listening, waiting and judging, And
there's a super chat here from It's Black Star. Thank you very much. He says, shout out to Hotep Jesus and shout out to Catherine for coming on and providing an awesome perspective. Thank you, man. Yeah, she's connecting turning on some neurons in my brain right now. Absolutely love it. Awesome. Let's talk sex work. Right? So it seems like sex work and feminism have now come hand in hand. And there's two stories I want to relate to this topic. One is the fact that Hugh Hefner was one of the big financiers of either first or second wave feminism. And
Yep.
this is the guy that had Playboy, right? Hugh Hefner.
The man, yeah.
Yeah. And then now, third wave feminism is like pro sex work. And it's sad because it's affecting young girls, right? So, for example, there's this new singer, Malu Trevejo, I believe her name is pronounced. And she just recently turned 18. And the day after her 18th birthday, she goes to her Instagram and says, "Hey guys, do you think I should open up an OnlyFans account?" Which means at the age of 17, maybe even 16, she was thinking about exposing her body for cash. And it's like, is that what we're breeding for young women? And so some people spoke up and say, "Hey, yo, like, that's not cool, Malu, you know, like, stick to your singing, you know, do that." And the feminists came out in droves and were like, "No, you're being anti-sex work," and all this stuff. It's a lot of toxicity coming along with that.
Yeah. Well, that's another one of those things where it's like reinventing the word empowering, where you're taking something that for eons has been sort of a degradation. It's like a last resort that you would do something like that because there wasn't anything else you could do to survive or make it. And now calling it empowerment, which I don't believe that is empowering. And it's all, you know, it's none of my business what other people decide. In the United States of America, if you're a girl or, you know, and you're of age or whatever, and you decide you want to do that as a Christian woman, I'm completely against it because I know, and I'm old enough, I'm never you mind years old, and I've seen a lot of things in my lifetime, and I know that no good thing comes out of that. It seems like a good idea at the time, but after time goes by, it leaves scars on the inside, battle wounds on the inside, every time you give a little piece of yourself away. And I see girls doing this, thinking they're empowering themselves, and they're being cheered on by, you know, these, you know, feminists telling them, "Yeah, take your power. That's your power. Your power is your sexuality." And then finding themselves broken and on drugs and messed up because on the inside, they're doing damage spiritually, and they're doing damage emotionally and mentally because they're undervaluing themselves and trading something precious for money. And I don't see it as empowering at all. I see people using it as a way to manipulate people into telling them that it's empowering. But at the end of the day, do I think it's empowering? No, I don't.
Yeah, Sabir said it's in gaming too. Yeah, the gaming culture is quite interesting. But yeah, young girls are getting used to exposing their bodies for cash on Twitch and so forth. Not completely nude, but you know, still
when you're a woman, I'm speaking as a woman, so I think I can do that. When you take a body part and you make it transactional, you're doing something down deep that you don't mean to. But I see, you know, you're taking a body part, an intimate part of yourself, and turning it into a transaction, and that is never going to leave you feeling. And maybe it's like any other kind of drug. It's like an endorphin rush or a dopamine hit or whatever, to be able to say, "Oh, I did this and I got this attention and I got $100 or whatever." But it chips away at your self-esteem over time, I would think. And at some point, the transactions just become demeaning. And then it's like anything else. It's like any other drug. You have to have more. You have to show more to get more. And at the end of the day, you've just given yourself away. And then your memory banks are full of these transactions, right? Isn't that what would happen? And then how does the person go into adulthood and into motherhood and into their adult life after having done these things, after having made these transactions and still feel whole after giving away so much of themselves.
Yeah. I can't wait to have Eliza Blue come on. She's going to be able to talk to that point. I'm not a woman, so it's, and I've never been a woman.
Well,
it's
I'm not a sex worker, so I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe I don't know what I'm talking about, but I am a woman, and I do know women, who've been in situations back in the day where, they've done things that they've had to do. And, like I see both sides, but I don't see it turning into, let me just grind it down to the bare bones. I don't see it as empowering. It may be a means to an end, and it may be something that you do, for now. Maybe you're Cardi B, maybe you make a whole, a persona of that and everything. And then you make a lot of money and that's just what you want to do. But I don't see like an end game for her that's going to be positive.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong. I hope when she's 60, she can look back on her life and say, wow, I really feel empowered by all those videos and all that stuff I said and all those things I did, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I can't tell the future, but I can't see a great ending to that.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I think sex work for many is a means to an end. You'll notice that when women get a certain dollar amount, they usually stop, right? Which means it's not like they like doing that. They don't enjoy it.
No.
I think it's just that I think there's a daddy issue. I think there's a economic issue that America has, that it's very hard to have upward mobility due to communist regulations, socialist regulations, and opening up a business, a legitimate business. But at the same time, I don't think the law should get involved in saying what men and women should do with their body, right? Like, I'm not for that at all. What do you think about that?
I don't have a position on that. I mean, I think I think we have too many laws about too many things already, and it gets all mixed up. I think we have to protect young girls.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Young girls don't make good decisions. Like young boys don't make good decisions.
Right.
So 17 years old, I think, is too young to be. I think that shouldn't be allowed. I don't think that should be something we allow. We don't allow young boys that are 17 or 18 to be with 14-year-old girls. Like I think that the age is a factor for sure. So I don't know that there needs to be laws. I do think what I see is you kind of went a full circle. I don't even know you meant to, but isn't it interesting that I never really thought of it from this point until you said that? But wouldn't it be interesting if the feminist is also has to do with daddy issues? It does. The anger at the patriarchy and the male figures has to do with a lack on the inside of a good male role model. And if that's what we've done in our society, which is diminished the role of the father, or the fathers have abdicated their role, are we creating this sort of vicious circle? I don't know. I just thought of that when you said that. I thought that was really kind of interesting.
That's been my hypothesis. No, go ahead.
Well, last night, funny, timely thing, my daughter was watching Intervention. I've been having my kids watch Intervention since they were really young.
What's Intervention?
Because Intervention is like a reality show where they show addicts and their lives, and then they have like an intervention and they try to get these people help.
Okay.
I feel like a lot of sex workers are tied into the drug trade and being addicted to drugs and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But in this particular episode, there was a young girl, and her sister was talking to her and saying, please don't do this. Please don't do this. And so they had the girl. She was like, it was a close camera shot. She was right there. And they were saying, where are you going? And she said, well, I have to go. Well, I need money. And I'm trying to figure out, like, I can't get any money from my dad. I feel dope sick. And so I'm going to go do a intimate massage. I think that's what she called it, or like an erotic massage. And she kind of rolled her eyes, and then her face just dropped. And then she looked up at the camera and her eyes were like dead. And she said, this is the least favorite way I have to get money. But at the end of the day, this is the only thing I have left to sell. And I was just like, oh.
That's sad.
And so that's an interesting thing that happens, I guess, in the life of a woman is no matter what happens, I always have this one last thing to sell, which is basically my self-worth and my dignity. But she was doing it because she ran out of options. And so she was selling her body for money for drugs. But isn't that kind of what we're talking about? Is that it's transactional. That's a power women have, but it comes at a huge price. And so that's my take on that, I guess.
Yeah. One of the popular Black feminists, her baby daddy left her while she was pregnant and went and got married. And I think that's yeah. So I think heartbreak.
That's hurtful.
Yeah, I think heartbreak and experiences with men greatly contribute. Abandonment.
Rejection.
Yeah. I think that greatly contributes to women's decision to become feminists. Something bad happens with men and they become male haters, and then feminism becomes
they're angry.
They're
empty and angry. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's like an AA group, right? Like, but a bad AA group, because AA group is supposed to like help you, but they go to the feminists so they can just kind of like bash men together.
I guess I like to kind of slide in with this with a little, caveat, which is there's a lot of feminists doing a lot of really good work that are moms and that are, I have family members that are very into feminism, and they've raised beautiful daughters, and they've, I don't have a lot of contact with them, but I know they're incredible parents. They have, it's a, two-person families. I think there's there's levels of everything. There's always that, you can do this and you can go, woo, and you can go too far with something. And so I think I don't want to disrespect women who are feminists, who are fighting for, for self-worth and autonomy and, and self, and having their, the dignity that they deserve, like those things, and being respected in the workplace. I think all of those things are really important. And I think that's good work to do. I think when it goes to the level of like wanting to bust the society down and tear everything up, and men are bad, and women that don't do what we think you should are bad. And this is, I'm going to read this to you. This was, Jessica Crispin is like a big time feminist who doesn't think feminists today are doing enough feminism. That's not good enough. But this is what she believes. And this is what I think is the bitter root that is affecting many, is a biblical verse that says that. Careful you don't become the bitter root that, that corrupts many. It says, I'd like to set fire to all patriarchal religions, to the idea of a male God. In short, everything has to be reimagined. The world is bad. We need a total global revolution. I don't know what we would replace it with, but let's just blow the whole thing up. But that's her ideology is, cultural determinism and, those kinds of things that, it's not enough to just be discontent with it. We want to tear it all down, but yet we have no idea what we want to replace it with. It still needs to be torn down. And I find that highly dangerous ideology to push. And I don't like it being taught in the schools. And I don't think anything good will come of it. So I thought that was really powerful.
Yeah. Hotep and build is a common mantra here. And we believe instead of trying to tear down something, build something better, and people will come. You make the old system obsolete, and people go, why didn't we do things this way the whole time? And I think people need to spend more time doing that. Shout out to Ken Thoreau, 199 Super Chat. He says, shout out to Maul Kingsbury and Hotep Nation. Thanks, Ken. Appreciate you, homie. Shout out to Sketch Therapy holding me down in the chat. I know Trish is in here too. Shout out to Trish. Always holding me down as well. Thank you very much, y'all. And Raiders in here somewhere too.
So I guess I hope it doesn't backfire, and I think that's what I'm concerned about. And I see kind of things at a tipping point, or where we've just moved moved it so for the pendulum so far this way that there's nothing else left but to swing. And I see like there's a lot of litigious females that are like, everything that happens at my job, if I'm fired, it's sexism. So are women going to be hired as much if we start this, if we go down this path and we just want to do the scorched earth, kind of methodology of getting our point across? That's what concerns me, because if you're in a position to hire people, are you going to want to hire a woman if that's where we start? Is like, everything offends me, everything guys do is gross, every time they say anything it bothers me, then will they be hired for positions as much? Will there be as many opportunities for women if that's the way that we're going to handle ourselves in a world where we're interacting with men, where we can't take a joke and we can't laugh it off? And if somebody says something off color, we can't just say, instead of, like I said, clutching the pearls and, oh, I'm so, how dare you? And I'm going to HR, I'm reporting you for misogyny. Like, I think it's a very dangerous path to get to the point where you just are so hard to work with and so intolerant of everyone else's ideas that it's just not worth it anymore.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, we're at a crossroads right now in how we move, and I think that what you're doing is definitely the first step towards combating this evil, and that's showing face, speaking up, speaking out, speaking against. And I just want to thank you just being brave and having this conversation with me.
I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to come on your platform and share these ideas. And you always leave me thinking about things and sometimes even questioning myself, which is a good thing to do. I'll do more of that. And even just give, like you said, the neurons are firing. I'm thinking about things that maybe I'm not right about some of these things, but maybe there's more to it. Maybe it should be explored. Maybe we should all be exploring these things.
Yeah, I think God gave me this platform for a reason, and I don't think the reason was for myself. I didn't plan on doing interviews. It kind of just happened after the Bitcoin debate. A gentleman was supposed to be a part of the debate, and I swapped him out with somebody out last minute. I felt bad, and then I said, "Look, bro, I'll bring you on my channel. We can come and talk." And then it just kind of like started, and I'm just like, now I'm in this lane where I'm interviewing people, but I'm saying how important it is to have this platform for people like yourself, So I'm just glad that I could provide that platform. Now, you took some notes. Is there anything left on that wonderful piece of paper that you wanted to cover?
Yeah, I think that one of the other things that I did want to cover is that feminists talk a lot about marriage. And I think it would be remiss of us to discuss feminism and radical feminism more specifically. Don't have issues with first wave feminism or with protecting women's rights like that. I'm on board with. Yeah. It's the radical feminists that want to blow up that don't respect marriage. They want to reform marriage. They want to reject it outright, or they demean people for marriage, or they make fun of women who are in marriages because they're submissive and this and that. And I feel like that's one of the points that really bother me the most is that is radical feminists think that, or some, not all, I'm not, like I said, painting with a broad brush here, but think that marriage should be abolished. We should just have these relationships where everybody gets to, have civil unions, and we should all get the same benefits people do if they're married, except we just should abolish marriage because in their mind, which is completely wrong, like a Christian marriage or whatever, it doesn't even matter if it's a Christian marriage, then they believe that you as a woman are selling yourself out, or you're submissive to your husband, and that is, that you're giving away your power. And nothing could be further from the truth. In my marriage right now, the way things are, I know there's a lot of marriages where there's a different power dynamic, and I'm not insensitive to that. But if you just look at the actual, sanctity of marriage, what does it do for people? You know, the partnership of marriage, the partnership of parenting, the way that it's set up. And I'm totally 100% believe that it's, you know, a God-given, you know, gift that a man and a woman come together, build a life, build a family, and leave a legacy. To me, that's like what it's all about. And so when I see feminists on social media denigrating other women for their relationships, for marriages, for pregnancies, for not doing it right, not, you know, it drives me crazy. And I guess what I would say is if people would just mind their own business and stop trying to decide what's right and what's wrong for everybody else. And people may say, well, that's hypocritical of you. You're a Christian. You probably think things are right or wrong for other people. And that's true. I do. I have my own set of ideas and ideals and beliefs and traditions. But I'm not about running around making people feel bad about who they are. That's not my religion. And that's not the relationship I have with God, that I'm allowed to do that. But I think when you have a whole group of people whose big deal is judging how other people do it. Like I said, Amy Coney Barrett, perfect example. Someone like myself, who I used to write a blog and it was pretty well read. And every time that I would talk about, you know, my husband, you know, he's the boss, or I'd make an offhanded joke, I'd have people pouncing on me. Don't say that. Don't say your husband's the boss. Or I'd say he's the captain of the ship and I'm the first mate, or I'm the co-captain. Don't say that, you know. And it's like, that's how it has to be in a relationship, regardless of it's the man is, you know, is the one who's making the decisions, or the woman. You can't have two pilots at the same time. You can't have two bosses at the same time.
That's correct.
So somebody has to move over and let somebody else take the lead.
Yes.
And I think it's beautiful. I don't think it makes me submissive. I tease people all the time online. I'm like, you know, I'll go make you a sandwich, you know, like I love my role as a woman. I love my role as a wife. And I do defer a lot of decisions and things for finances or things that I just don't really have a great grasp on.
Mm-hmm.
He's the guy. He's my go-to. He knows things I don't know. He sees things in a different way. And so if everybody saw things just like me, I would make so many more mistakes than if I have a steady person next to me who's helping me when I can't see what I'm doing myself. You know, it's like having a mirror. If you look in the mirror and all you see back is you, you know, then you're only seeing one thing. Mm-hmm. So I guess, you know, I believe that marriage is sacred and beautiful and important. And a marriage between a man and a woman is a marriage that I choose, you know, and I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole of trying to judge what other people do. That's not my job. And I'm not taking that on. But I do get frustrated with the feminist idea that if you submit to a man in a marriage on decision making or parenting decisions or whatever, that somehow you're weak. And, you know, the Bible says, let the weak say, I am strong. So like whenever my husband and I are together and and sometimes I have a weak moment and he's strong and he pulls me out of it, and then vice versa, that's what the partnership was designed for. And that's the beauty of it. And that's what why God created it that way in my mind. And I don't see how anyone would ever find that to be a negative unless they've never experienced it themselves, in which case it'd be easy to tear it down.
Yeah, someone who
so I don't.
I think this goes back to, like, you know how they say, you know, before you can lead, you must first learn how to follow. So yeah, you know, I think that's what it is. These women have never followed a man before, and that goes back to the absence of the father in their life. So therefore, they don't. So they want to lead, and they don't know how to lead. But they damn sure don't want a man to lead them. So there's a lot of there's a psychosis there. There are psychological problems. There's a need for therapy. But you're hitting on a lot of points, man. This is super powerful, super powerful.
Yeah, I'm glad we did this.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's good. All right, I'm gonna look at my notes. I think I've exhausted.
Sam Baker.
Oh, one other thing. Yeah, one other thing too that I want to point out is I was reading. I was talking. Well, I'm not going to bring up the abortion thing right now because let's not go there. But there was this thing where these women were arguing about kids are a liability and this is why we should have a free abortion on demand. And that men, if you do, like, no womb, no opinion, no uterus, no opinion, you know, all of that kind of stuff was going on in this conversation. And I said, you know, why do you revile masculinity so much that you would get with a man, you'd find him, you know, you'd find masculinity appealing in a moment, and then make what you call a mistake. And then whenever it comes time to decide what to do about it, no uterus, no opinion. You know, I revile masculinity. Masculinity has no place in this decision. And to me, it's just, I think people need to really rethink that. That whole chain of events there is like, you're either for the masculinity or you're not. Obviously you were for a minute or two or 10 or however lucky you got that day. But, you know, sorry, you know, if I offended anyone with that, but you'll be okay. But I just find that such a strange, you know, that's just such a strange thing to say. No uterus, no opinion. You can't, if you're a guy, you don't get to have an opinion about a woman if you don't have a uterus. I mean, why is it the uterus? You know, like, why no cervix, no, you know, opinion, or no, I don't know, whatever else we have.
No vagina, no opinion. Yeah.
That's right. No vagina, no opinion. No, you know, but I mean, then why isn't it the other way around? No penis, no opinion. You know, we have opinions about everything to do with men and what they think and what they do and how they dress and all that. You know, we tell them what to do all the time. I'm you know, that's what we're famous for. Yeah. Are you going to wear that? You know, I just could just see a guy saying, no penis, no opinion. I'm wear what I want. You know, I mean, it's just a strange hypocrisy that goes on where women feel like they have that, like I said, that moral halo, or they get to tell everyone else how to feel, what to think, what to do. And then when a man wants to have an opinion about something that clearly involves him making of a child, then all of a sudden it's no, it's my body, my choice, no uterus, no opinion. You don't get to have a say. And I find that just like repellent. It's like, of course a man should have, you know, an opinion about something that intimate and that important. So
yeah,
anyway, that was on my notes. I saw that.
Yeah, I think Angela Stanton King, I'm sorry, who's running for office in Atlanta, black politician.
Yeah, I love her.
Yeah, she speaks to that point, I think, eloquently. Is well thought out and well studied. So I love the work that she puts in on it. I don't know what to think about it, right? Because I personally am not interested in telling a woman what to do with her body, right? Like, I feel like
unless she's your wife, in which case you have a stake in it.
Yeah, but that operation it's terrible. You know, it's tragic, and I don't think I'd like to see a woman go through that process. No. And that surgery, you know,
it's rough. It's very rough.
Yeah. So, but you know, she's the one that's gonna have to carry the baby. You know, so on this topic, I really don't know what to think. You know, I just, I say, look. Yeah. Whatever decision you make, I'm going to support you. That's where I personally stand on it. Now, if a man says, hey, look, you should have my baby, I think he should have some say so, right? Like, I think it goes case by case. I don't think you can tell a man, hey, you can't tell a woman, can't is a very destructive. And I think
not a very good word either. Shouldn't tell.
Shouldn't's better. It's better though.
I think better.
It's better than
I didn't mean to like go down that road, and I really, that's a discussion for another day.
Yeah.
But I do feel like it's dismissive, that there are a lot of women who use language to X you out of the conversation, and say, well, you don't get to have an opinion on this because you're not a woman, as if that confers some sort of royal we, or like it's the if you're not a girl, then you don't get to have an opinion about girl stuff. But yet women have all kinds of opinions about guy stuff. That's just something that I observed.
Yeah. Sam Baker made a comment that made me think of something that happened the other day. He said, y'all ever notice the women of the Dem party either have no kids or husband and hate men. And it's so true, because I was in a chat room the other day and a liberal woman was talking. I forget what we were talking about, but she said, I don't want kids. I hate kids because, she said, they're expensive and I hate repeating myself. And the first thing that came to my mind was, wow, you're selfish. Like you're not even thinking about anybody but yourself, you know? And
right. Then don't have kids.
She definitely should not. Right. Yeah, she's the last person that should procreate.
She was probably young too. I mean, I used to didn't think I wanted kids when I was younger. I was like, oh, it's too much. And then, you know, God put a desire in my heart for kids. And then I was told I had a 1% chance of ever getting pregnant. So, and
now you have 2.
I now have 3. So go figure. Never say never. But yeah, I think there's a lot of selfishness in feminism, and the radical feminism, where it's all about how I feel about what men do, how I feel about what men, you know, what they've done and what they think and how they act and how they smell, and they're stinky and they're, you know, and they take up too much space and they're this and they're that. And it's really all just self-centeredness. Is, you know, I want my own, I want more space, so you should have less. You know, I don't want to smell a smell, so you do this. Like, I guess in a way, just that behavior of the way that it's like diminishing men, demeaning them, putting them down, is just, you know, it's something we just shouldn't do. But I don't know how it's not something I do. It's not how I'm raising my daughter. And I have hope, because I see my daughter and her friends, you know, I don't see them going down that road. I mean, I guess I've already explained to my kids there are college degrees I will pay for, and there's college degrees I won't pay for. And, you know, humanities, I'm not paying for that. You know, women's studies, not paying for that. Liberal arts, you know, I'd rather put my kid through plumbing school, to be quite honest, than I would to put them through, you know, humanities.
Right.
Because, you know, unless they're going to be a psychiatrist or a sociologist, or if they have a specific thing they want to do, but just to go to school, to get a degree, to be in debt, just so that you can be told by a bunch, you know, scolded by a bunch of people that you're a victim, and you know, you should be angry at the world, and you never had a shot in the first place like you thought, and your parents lied to you about that, and then they come out angry and upset and frustrated and don't know what to do with themselves. And I just want them to have like a plan, and I'll fund that plan if it's a good plan. But I'm not just gonna, you know, throw you out there and you know, figure it out in that kind of an environment, because I don't see good things coming out of that. Not to me.
Right.
Some people may see it and think, this is great. I love that my kid is thinking this way and doing these things, and that's great. That's good for them. And I'm not trying to impose my own will on other people. I'm just telling you what I think and what I see. My observations are my own. My vision for what I think life should be is my own, and I don't try to push it off on other people. I just have opinions about it.
No,
speculate.
I totally agree. Catherine, thank you very much for coming on the platform and speaking to me today. I'm gonna go ahead and get this thing up on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, etc. So people can listen to the audio version of this. People that want to get in contact with her link is in the description box below, so you can follow her on Twitter. And once again, I'm sorry. But once again,
my son just popped up a message that said, "Go off, Mom," and I was like, "Oh, okay."
Shout out to your son.
Funny. Hey, Squishy.
Yeah. But yeah, thank you very much for coming on. You can go ahead and cut out, and I'm gonna go ahead and close out the show. And if you need me, I'm here.
Appreciate it. Have a good one. Take care.
All right, bless. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Catherine Kingsbury. Very, very warm woman. Very important person. Very important voice. Very important opinion. But I think it's important for people in her demographic to speak up and speak out and speak against this Marxist-controlled third wave feminism, because it's affecting young girls, it's affecting young men. Um, like I said before, this interview will be available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, and of course here on YouTube. All you have to do is search Sharp Conversations, Sharp with an E, Sharp Conversations with Hotep Jesus. And please subscribe. If you're listening on Spotify, if you're listening on Apple, subscribe and please leave me a 5-star review. I'll greatly appreciate it. And I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. I love y'all. Appreciate y'all. And be safe. Hotep and build.